You're listening to Over the Bull, where we cut through marketing noise. Here's your host, Ken Carroll.
I am sounding the alarm on this episode of Over the Bull. If you own a business and you're running paid ads, you need to be painfully aware of something that's going to happen shortly. I can't see a way around it, and you need to understand. So stay tuned to this episode of Over the Bull. So first of all, I want to talk to you about artificial intelligence, and I want to share my personal philosophy on artificial intelligence. Just kind of gives you perspective as to what I see. I am not a salesman for artificial intelligence. I merely see the storm on the horizon, and I want to make businesses aware of what it looks like, according to every signal that's out there, what's going to be happening with artificial intelligence. Now, as far as I'm concerned with it, I see the artificial intelligence model as it's being evolved as a very dangerous thing. The reason being is that I have run several tests on these AI models, and the problem is it does have the philosophical and theological bias of the people that make it. For example, if a company leans a certain way politically, or they lean a certain way when it comes to certain subjects, such as pharmacy or some of these other issues, you see that they're not giving you the full story. I had to literally prod AI over and over again, and all it did was kept referring to the makers of certain things and kept giving me a bias that was inaccurate. This is the danger of artificial intelligence, and I think that it's a real danger of artificial intelligence. So as I'm talking to you about these large language models, I want you to know that I'm reacting to what I'm seeing on the internet. I'm not overly excited about what I see overall with artificial intelligence with the general public. When it comes to marketing, I see great promise when it comes to that. But unleashing in a world where we have nothing but headlines and captions and people just want to be told what the answer is, having a system that is biased toward a certain perspective and not able to give neutral answers is dangerous. I don't know any way to put this. And so keep in mind, this is where I am coming from. Now, there is going to be some dramatic changes when it comes to how a business is going to market in the future. So to kind of piggyback on the last episode of Over the Bull, basically search engines are going to change. Everybody's painfully aware in big tech that people are going to transition the way that they search. Now, a lot of you may already know that you use things like ChatGPT, and you now have conversations with ChatGPT. You no longer, jump on Google and search the way that you've traditionally searched. At least a lot of you haven't, and some of you just haven't picked up on it yet. But it's very common for me to drive into work. And as I'm driving into work, I'll often ask AI models. I'll have conversations verbally with these models and ask it questions and get feedback, and then, have this push-pull conversation. And usually by the time I'm at work, I have a lot of things worked out that I've been thinking about on the way in. So it's been very valuable in that respect. But what does this mean for you? It's going to mean a lot of things, because now what it's going to mean is you need to rethink how your business is going to get brought up in those conversations. For example, I'm talking to an AI model and I say, hey, my water heater's broke. What do I do about it? And then it's going to bring an answer. And then at some point, I'm likely going to ask, well, who can help me fix that? And the way that you come up in those models looks like it's going to be significantly different. Also, how you gauge things like traffic. So let me give you an example. I was reading an article, and basically the article was about how Google's killing the internet. It was Nice, sensational title. But basically what it was saying was that traffic on a lot of these websites is starting to go the wrong direction. So if you could imagine, a company like Forbes or a magazine or something like that, who traditionally writes a lot of articles to gain traffic to the website, and then they monetize that traffic. Well, now the answers will come up straight in AI answers, if it's credible, good content. And if that happens, then you're going to have to look at other metrics for those business websites on how they gauge traffic, because some people may never click to go into the website to read those articles, but rather just get the synopsis from AI models. In other words, within the conversation, there's no need to click because you've already got it. And then if you use models like ChatGPT, what you'll see is when it gives answers, oftentimes it will cite where those answers are coming from or how it's sourcing that information. And so that's pretty interesting, because what that says is that the way we look at certain things looks like it's going to change dramatically in terms of traffic and things like that. But more importantly, for most businesses, it's how do I come up in those conversations? Now, how we're going to gauge success or failure in the future is largely unknown. We can only go based upon our current metrics. But based on everything that I'm looking at, the credibility of your company is going to be a very large factor. Because if you really boil down search engines or chat models or whatever, their value is in providing accurate content. Now, their value to big entities is to provide skewed content, that's the dangerous part I'm talking about. But providing accurate content is, to the general public, what's important. So you can kind of see their balancing act. If one of these big tech companies has a philosophical bias politically or with certain products that are big sponsors or whatever, you're going to see that they're going to have to tightrope this, because if they get caught giving a bias, then their AI models aren't going to be as valuable. However, it does also could turn into an Orwellian nightmare where they control the majority of people by giving them skewed answers to that philosophical bias. So you can see the danger there. Now, as far as what you need to look at as a business is, one, you need to start looking at metrics that build your credibility. Now, a lot of you, and this is the one thing I really want to talk about today, a lot of you are paying for Google Ads right now. So you're hiring a Google Ads company. And here's kind of what that Google Ads company does. What they typically will do in these situations is they build you a website. And they don't care how credible that website is in the eyes of Google. They're building that website to convert as many sales as they can. That's all they care about. These are typically called squeeze pages. You can call them, there's different products out there that build them where they're called funnels and things of that nature. But historically, the idea of worrying about the credibility of those sites wasn't really that big of a deal. And the reason being was they would pay for Google Ads. They would do what we call optimize, which basically means you make Google happy with how you set the ads up. And then you send them to that page, and then you adjust that page, and then people that click on the Google Ads go to that tiny microsite, and then they perform the action that you want them to perform, such as phone calls or filling out a form or booking an event. The really high ROI actions are what we would call traditional KPI actions. And that's worked pretty well over the years. Matter of fact, it works really good sometimes. There are entire businesses built around this concept of building these kind of squeeze pages, like ClickFunnels is one of those websites that do these things. And so here's the question. If we're talking about credibility, what makes your business credible in the eyes of these artificial intelligence models? there are a lot of metrics that we can look at. And a lot of these metrics, when businesses pay a Google Ads company to send them traffic in this way, they usually don't worry about these metrics, the ones that build actual credibility. They're just worried about sales for the next week, the next day, the next hour. Now, this is a mistake moving forward. We are moving into a brave new world on the internet. Like it, not like it. Hate the AI models, love the AI models. We're moving into it. That storm is on the horizon. The genie is out of the bottle, and we're going into it in a way that we've never been before. And so the question is what do we do? How do we do it? Well, credibility is the answer. You want to show yourself as being credible so that these AI models will start showing your business when questions are asked about things related to your business, so you have an opportunity to get in front of people who potentially want to use your services. So this whole idea, so let's think about this for a second. The people that have made a living off of selling Google Ads and building these little microsites, that's going to the wayside. Okay, I don't know how it's actually going to fully impact when the AI model comes around, and none of us do, but we all pretty much know that credibility is important. And the one thing about these little microsites is think of it like a little island in the middle of nowhere related to your business. And this traffic that you're not getting credit for your business is being sent to this microsite. So the traffic, the visibility, the on-site time, there's a lot of things that could contribute to what's going on. But the big thing is you want to do as much as you can to instill credibility. These Google Ad strategies are not going to contribute to that. You need to start thinking about your business as how do I make it overall more credible? And if I'm using practices that don't contribute to the credibility, but they scratch that itch of sales, then you're going to have to rethink that. And if you don't rethink it now, you're going to be behind the curve as these things start to transition. And I think they're going to transition relatively quick. So the idea is now you don't want to run ads to these little microsites. What you want to do is if you're going to run ads, you want to run them to your main website. And if your person or your group is still building these little microsites out and selling them to you, it's going to feel good right now if it's working. You know, no one likes pulling that Band-Aid off, but you're going to have to rip this Band-Aid off if you want to stay on the forefront of what's coming with artificial intelligence. This means that if you have a historic resource that has been using this practice, that it's going to go away. And if they're still doing this practice, they're either unaware that this is happening or they're ignoring that this is happening. But Google has published numerous articles. Years ago, they would even say that their search engines are wrong because it would give you more than one answer. You look at the number of people that use ChatGPT, it's significant. This is not a phase. This is a movement, and it's an undeniable movement. Just look at how big tech has changed their mentality. Remember, green energy, nuclear bad. But then we see their true colors when we look at the amount of energy that's going to need to be run in these AI models. Now what we see is we need nuclear power. We see these big tech companies now getting into it. You see, the thing is we're seeing the true colors. When it was convenient to be green, it's green. But as you see the consumption of these models, you see it getting worse and worse. And this is just one indicator when they're testifying saying we need more energy. We need more nuclear plants. And they're showing their hypocrisy by doing this. Then what we're also seeing is that this is real. Okay. You can't just say my guy's got it figured out. Here's how I know this. One of the things I've won awards in is search engine optimization. And I can't tell you how many times that I have seen different SEO companies, SEO firms who are using practices that have been dead for 10 years. They still try to use these tactics. And it's kind of odd to see that they've not, even full SEO companies have not embraced the idea that those practices no longer work. Well, just imagine SEO has evolved very slow over the years. It's gotten really good to kind of weed out these kind of like junk websites. By the way, when they build these websites for these landing pages for your Google ads, those are the same thing essentially. They're these little scrape junk websites in Google's eyes, and Google's never really liked these ideas. They and other search engines, they really want high quality content, but they also want your money. You know, when 78% of Google's revenue is estimated to be paid ads, they want your money. This is why some of the settings and the defaults are set up in a way that would spend your money quicker, not more efficiently or effectively. That's why you really should never run Google ads on your own if you're a business. That's a huge, huge mistake. You'll spend a lot more money and get a lot less results. So the idea is you need to look at, let's put some application to this. The first thing you're going to need to do is if you're using a Google Ads guy, you need to find out how they're running ads and where they're running those ads to. Are they running them to your main website? And are they working on your main website? Are they driving traffic to that main website? Or do they have a spin of your website, like another website that's built that's separate from your main website? And if that's the case, you're going to need to have a serious talk or seriously reconsider who you're using for Google Ads, which means now you're seeing, rather than having your Google Ads guy being separate from, say, your organic SEO guy or your web development guy, now what you've got to do is you've got to find someone who can kind of do all of those things. Because you can't have your SEO guy tripping over your paid AdWords guy's feet and vice versa. And you've got to be able to develop and modify your website in rapid fashion to react to what that traffic does. See, that's one of the reasons they build these little websites. The first reason is, of course, to validate that they're working because they want to track their own results. But the other reason that they do it is so they can make movements and changes if they need to, which most of them really don't. They're more concerned about the first part of just justifying it. Quick side note, one of the things that these Google Ads guys do often is I found that they'll go to your Google business profile and they will actually point that to these little scrape sites, these little microsites that they're using for Google Ads. This is another mistake. What they're doing is trying to pad the numbers. Like back in the old days when I used to watch the NFL, they would have that term, where you're padding your stats, where you would basically throw the ball in the flats or something like that, and then it would, statistically increase your numbers. That's kind of what they're doing with this. They're fudging the numbers by tying Google Business into your paid ads, and coincidentally, that decreases your credibility and can actually get your listing suspended, or it can get it, and I've seen this, it'll get you suspended or at very least where you have to re-verify your business sometimes because Google wants to trust what's credible. That's their model. That's why people use it. If you did a search and a bunch of irrelevant results came up, then what you're going to do is not use that search engine. Well, this is part of the reason that one of the factors in how much you pay per click on Google Ads is the quality score of your ads. They want to make sure that your ads correspond with the keywords you're targeting and correspond with the landing page you're sending them to. That's the quality score. They care about that because they have to care about that. I think 78% of their revenue. That's a pretty big number. So now what do you do? Let's put some practical applications to this and kind of lock down what you need to do and really prioritize it. First, don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. Don't ignore this. This is absolutely I can't even put it in perspective how important it is, regardless of the results you're getting from those websites. Okay, number one, get with your Google Ads guy. Say, where are you sending the traffic to when you're doing the ads promotionally? If it's your main business website, then it's on the right track. If they say they built this special optimized website they're sending traffic to, and then they give you the justification for it or whatever, you're on the wrong track. That train is going to end soon. You need to start thinking about your overall credibility. So this is the crux here. Are you going to ride the train until it blows up, or are you going to get off of it and start doing things that are better? Slowly pull off the Band-Aid, rip off the Band-Aid, whatever analogy you want. But the point is credibility. You want to take that traffic, and then you want to start pointing it to your main website, and then optimizing your main website. Now, this also mean you need to switch providers. You're going to need somebody that's going to understand search engine optimization, Google Ads, landing pages, social media, how that integrates into it, because you can't ignore social media anymore either. Those are signals that have been SEO signals for some time, but they're also going to be signals as far as your overall credibility of your business. The next thing is you want to look at your Google business profile. So if you go to business.google.com and you go in there and look, you can see what website that's connected to your Google business profile. And that'll be an immediate clue whether or not your Google Ads guy is padding the numbers if he's pointing it to that site. But that should point to your main site. The other thing is you need to work with a company that specializes in local marketing strategies. Now, there's a lot of good tools out there. Now, when I say local marketing, there's a term you're going to want to write down. It's called your NAP score, like when you were a kid and you took a nap in preschool or something. But NAP stands for name, address, and phone. What that means is your information is going to need to be consistent across a bandwidth or a spectrum of the internet. And if it's not consistent, then what's known as your NAP score is decreased, meaning you're not as credible, you're not as consistent as your competitors. Now, at Integris, we have invested some tools seriously into really addressing this problem on a level we've never done. We've always done it, but now we've got like a supercharged version because we do see what's going on here. So what you need to find out is if you've got a separate person who's doing your Google business profile optimization, you need to find out what they're doing, what your NAP score is, and where you are ranking locally. You also need to carefully pay attention to the categories at which they're assigning to your business. I have seen a lot of these things where people are selling these kind of automated systems and they're just collecting money from you every month and letting those things go on autopilot. Really, the optimization needs to be much deeper. The descriptions need to be filled out. The categories need to be understood. The name of your business needs to be accurate. The address of your business needs to be accurate. And you need to respond to reviews quickly. And there are some really neat tools that help you doing responses to reviews. Believe it or not, that is known as one of the factors that go into Google Business Optimization. So if you see a lot of unread reviews and you're paying somebody to do that, that's a sign they're not doing their job. You see categories in your business by editing your profile, scrolling to the categories, and you're seeing that they're not consistent or robust, you don't see it fully filled out, they're not doing their job. They're just collecting a paycheck. So getting your NAP score up is huge, and you need to find somebody that does that. Ideally, you want to find that person that does Google Ads plus Google Business. And then you also want to have them where they understand SEO and web development. Okay. So the next thing is to understand your web developer. Okay. Traditionally, your web developer is almost considered like this designer, so to speak, where they pick a template and they put in pictures and they do this and they do, but they're not considering the big part of, okay, how does this contribute to the larger conversation, credibility, and conversions? Because now your Google Ads is not going to this highly optimized, low-ranking website. Now it's going to go to your main website. So now you can't ignore those kind of traditional KPIs that were coming from Google Ads. So you got to make sure your web person understands that. You see, this is why it's getting much more complicated. Traditionally, what you would see is a Google Ads guy. So if a guy is just doing Google Ads, he's not going to be able to help you in the future. He's probably doing all right now, and he probably understands quite a bit. But if he don't quickly expand into full-fledged web development and search engine optimization, increasing your NAP score, investing in the right tools, working on your social, making all that consistent, guess what? That a la carte, having 10 chefs in the kitchen, that's going to be more and more problematic as you go. I don't know what it's going to mean in terms of like these design tools, like Canva and all that. You know, traditionally, branding and marketing people, I personally find I'm resistant to using that because I find it's a shortcut rather than doing the hard work and keeping the branding consistent. But there are some applications for it. And anyway, just a thought. We had a previous podcast where me and a guest were talking about those products, but I don't know how this is going to even impact that. All right, so once you have achieved that, the next thing is are you doing your social media? What I mean by that, are you posting on a regular basis? Are you using topics that are relevant? Are you linking those topics to articles on your website? Now, when I say articles on the website, I cannot state this enough, okay? I have seen SEO guys, and they're doing more and more of this. They're using artificial intelligence to write the articles for the client, and they're not incorporating the client's specific benefits, and it's not human engaged. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at AI content, AI is actually looking at AI content. Okay, this is why, and they don't like it, by the way. They don't want AI content. They want meaningful, sentient, human content is what they want right now. This is why we have terms like EEAT. If you go back and listen to a previous podcast, I spent a little time on EEAT and the importance of creating original authoritative content that's not just blathered and spit out by AI. So even though AI is becoming more of that, it is becoming the standard of the internet and conversational language, it's also looking for human content. So you see there's this weird contradiction in the way the internet's going to move. So another flag that your provider's not doing a good job for you is if they're smattering content and using AI to create that content, not involving you in it. So what they're trying to do is create a bunch of content and say, hey, look what I'm doing for you. And then you look at it and go, wow, that's a lot of content. That's a lot of articles. And in reality, they're just running it through one of these AI things and creating an article, posting it to your website and giving you some eye candy that's not really relevant. The ideal way to do it is combine AI. So what we do is we use AI tools to examine other popular articles, and then we create outlines using AI tools. And then what we'll do is we'll actually generate an article, share it with the client, and then we'll ask the client to read it, adjust it, modify it, clean it up. And then actually there are even tools to even like mask the idea that even parts of it were AI. And so the idea is you really want to make sure that you're creating original content. If your SEO guy's whipping things out and just posting it to your website, that's likely a problem unless you meet with them and they can show you how they're addressing EEAT in what they're doing. And go back and listen to the EEAT podcast to kind of understand what I'm talking about. So, if this sounds complicated to you, it is. It's getting more complicated. You need to start looking as someone who can holistically do all of this for you. And you're going to have to start doing something that's going to be really, really painful for a lot of you. And that is the KPIs that you look at, meaning KPIs is just a fancy word to say meaningful actions. Okay. And so we got to think on KPIs too. But traditionally, there have been two kind of KPIs. The kind of traditional KPIs that you look at that drive traffic, calls, all that. But then you have something called awareness KPIs that kind of build your brand up within a certain segment. There's going to be a series of KPIs you're going to need to pay attention to that are like credibility KPIs. Like where is your NAP score at? How are you performing locally? What kind of content are you creating? Are you broadcasting similar content on social? What is your website domain rating? So if you go back and look, I think Moz Tools calls it DA or domain authority, but then tools like Ahrefs call it domain ranking or rating. I can't remember off the top of my head. But what that does is actually show you how strong or how weak your website is. And so you really need to get that DA or DR score as high as you can. And you need to do that through creating credible content. And there's just so many factors. And so literally when you're thinking today, if it's not all put together in a meaningful way, it's not going to help your business succeed in the future. And here's the really scary part. Now, I remember leaving it off in the last podcast. But the scary part to this thing is that your business can go dark overnight, meaning that when these models switch and you're not building your credibility up in a meaningful way, and you're not asking questions about how your credibility is being built up, and you're leaning more on these traditional KPIs, your business can go dark. It can go dark literally overnight. And as they're pulling these models and they're changing these metrics, these big tech companies are doing it. And so if you're not watching that, then your sales can fall through the floor. Everything you trusted can fall through the floor. One of the hard things to do, and this is every generation, is that I still talk to businesses that are big and their sales are going the wrong direction. And it's because they rely on legacy techniques, meaning old, irrelevant techniques to sell that they once relied on that are no longer relevant. So this is why you see things like newspapers that are trying to sell Google Ads advertisement or banner ads or whatever, and they do a really poor job of it. They're just piggybacking their historic reputation on selling this new technology that they really don't have a grasp on. And so, but they're, we're a big company, we can add this on kind of thing. And that's obviously a mistake too. But the reason that they're doing this is because, one, the companies are trying to survive. A lot of the legacy media, newspapers, just old techniques that are dying this slow death. And now what you're seeing is that they're trying to cling on to it, but then the owners of the businesses that once were very successful doing certain things, they still try to cling on to those things. And so you got to get out of it. You got to get out of that mindset and say, okay, the world's changing. I don't want to be advertising in the yellow pages of the phone book. I don't want to be investing in designs in the yellow pages of the phone book or buying full page ads in the phone book when people are going to the internet and they're searching a whole different way. If you cling on to what you're doing, that's exactly what you are doing. You are buying the modern day version of yellow page ads in an old phone book, something that no one uses. And for your younger generations, yes, we actually had a phone book back in the day where we would advertise and promote. That's why you see like a lot of these old businesses, like AAA something. The reason they put all A's in the front was because they wanted to come up top in the phone book listings. So that's a little bit of odd trivia on why you see some of these heavy AAA names and things like that. That was a traditional marketing strategy. Okay, guys, I know as a business, I know you want to do business and you don't want to be messing with this stuff. I know it's technical, it can be frustrating, and it's hard enough when you've got all these people emailing you a bunch of cold emails promising you the moon. You got a guy that's halfway working, and now I'm telling you that he's probably not going to be good in the future. And now you've got to make some really tough decisions. But it's the reality of where the internet is. Now, if you can get moving on this and get going in the right direction, you'll be in the forefront. The good news is the people that go dark will be hidden and you'll be more visible. The good news is that you can stay in front of this thing by instituting best practices. And here's the thing. As far as I know, the practices that are going to sustain you are the best practices that they're telling you. All these search engines are telling you to do. And so it's not the practices, it's all these little weird techniques that these marketing companies are doing to try to skirt the system. Let me share a story with you real quick before we go. There is a technique in search engine optimization, and it's called PBNs. If you look it up, you'll find out it's a private blog network. Now, what that is it is where a search engine optimization company will go buy a bunch of high value domains, meaning they have that high domain rating, and they'll build these junk sites using it. And then what they do is they try to hide the fact that they own all these websites in this private blog network. And then when someone buys services, rather than doing the hard work of building credibility, they just simply put backlinks on these websites and point them to your site, which gives the impression that your website is more valuable than it is. You see, they're trying to trick the internet. Now, they've been very clear. The search engine has been very clear that this is extremely frowned upon. Not only frowned upon, but you could get banned. I mean, in extreme situations, kind of like you're caught up in a sting operation and you're innocent. Well, if these SEO companies are promoting your business like that, they can hurt your brand. But you see, Google's openly said, we don't like this technique. But yet the SEO companies are doing it because it's easier for them to do it. They get results, make the customer happier, and they don't even tell them what they're doing. All the business thinks is that the SEO company is really, really good at what they do. They have no idea that if they quit using those services, guess what? All those links, they go away. And then you hire your next SEO guy, and your next SEO guy is trying to use ethical practices, and like not using steroids to perform an athletic event, he's trying to do it the legitimate way, putting in the work and hard energy and effort to build your credibility ethically. And yet he may be getting beat up by you a little bit because you're going, well, my last SEO guy was able to do this. And those are challenges. All right. So basically this is going on everywhere. There are businesses that are sending cold emails out. You really want to be the business where you have someone that is sending out emails on behalf of your company, representing your brand and your name, sending out random cold emails to large groups of people, begging for work? Is that how you want your business to be known in the world? If not, then you need to get away from it. Do you want to go down in a blaze of glory using old Google Ads techniques that really should have never been done to begin with? Or are you going to switch over? Are you going to start worrying about social media in a meaningful way or not? Are you going to start thinking about content marketing in a meaningful way? Or are you going to allow your SEO guy to keep pushing these AI blog articles on the internet that are not as valuable as properly managed EEAT articles? You see, all this has to be thought through. All this has to be addressed. So good luck. Good luck with this. And I really hope that you take this to heart, and I hope you use this to make your business stronger and better. I hope you use this to find good vendors that really have an idea of how all this stuff works together. And I hope that you can, instill the patience and not go back to people that are using techniques that are completely inappropriate, only hurting your business, and they only feel good today. They won't feel good long term. So to your success, I really do hope you do this, and I hope that you grow, and I hope you're on the forefront, and I hope you take advantage of what's coming in the AI model in spite of all the potential negatives that are going to happen with the world and as it's transitioning, and as we deal more with the society of people that want to appear intelligent but don't really do the real homework to understand really what's going on. And our job as business owners is to survive and grow, protect our people, and do a good job for people. And this is one of those steps to your success. Until next time, this is Ken with Over the Bull.
Thanks for tuning in to Over the Bull, brought to you by Integris Design, a full-service design and marketing agency out of Asheville, North Carolina. Until next time.